Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at a place called Woodhenge in Wiltshire. It's located about 2 miles north of Amesbury and 10 miles north of Salisbury. And we're going to be walking a roughly 5-mile circular route around the evocative landscape of the Stonehenge Estate. And we'll be seeing lots of Bronze Age barrows, the cursus, the avenue, a dismantled railway, Woodhenge, the Durrington Walls, and of course the iconic Stonehenge itself. Well, as I was to find out later, dogs are not allowed on much of the Stonehenge landscape. So here's a map showing a suggested route for dog walkers. The part of the original route marked in orange is off limits for dogs, even on a lead. So basically, if you want to get near to Stonehenge or walk along all of the avenue and the cursus, you can't do it with your dog. Now I'm filming at the end of November. The sun is out, there's blue sky, but it's very cold and there's a bitter wind. It's about 6 or 7 degrees, so we're well wrapped up, but it should be perfect conditions for walking. Do come along with us. Well, I've parked my car for free right by Woodhenge, which is just off the Amesbury to Durrington Road. And as we're right in the middle of Woodhenge, let me tell you about it. And it really is quite fascinating. It was only actually discovered after an aerial photograph that was taken in 1925 showed rings of dark spots in a crop of wheat. Although the site had previously been identified in the early 19th century when it was described as earthworks and thought to be a barrow. So that's why it doesn't actually appear on a 1901 map. And the experts reckon it was built around about 2,500 BC, and it's 6 concentric circles of standing posts surrounded by a bank and ditch. The outer ring is about 40 metres wide, and the ditch was about 2.5 metres deep and 12 metres wide. And then the outer bank was about 10 metres wide and 1 metre high. And the overall diameter was about 110 metres. So these holes would have had wooden posts. So what you see today are sort of modern concrete posts showing the actual positions of the posts. As for what it was for, well, I'll let you look it up because there are so many different theories. Now, one thing I ought to say is that during the course of this walk, we're going to see quite a few ancient earthworks and what have you. The experts and the archaeologists and the historians, even they don't really fully understand why they were built or how they were built, and I certainly don't. So during the course of the walk, what I'll do is I'll point them out to you and I'll give you some general information. If you want to know more, there are plenty of YouTube videos going into some of these aspects in much more detail. This is just really a man and his Whippet going out for a walk. Well, what a quite extraordinary place, but there's a lot more to see yet. So our next destination, we're going to do a little detour to look at something to the north. Well, this is the next thing that I wanted to look at, and it's about as near as I'm going to get because there's a sign here that says the field in front of me is a dog-free zone, which is disappointing, but there we go. And it's the Durrington Walls. It's the site of a large Neolithic settlement and later henge enclosure. And the henge is the second largest late Neolithic palisade enclosure in the UK. and it may have had something like 1,000 houses and 4,000 people living here at one stage. And the site was used for between 500 and 700 years, between 2800 BC and 2100 BC. But in front of me here, it's amazing to think that at one stage it might have been the largest settlement in Europe. But what remains today is the walls of the henge, sort of eroded remains of the inner slope of the bank and the outer slope of the internal ditch. Although there was early Neolithic activity, most of the structure was built in the late Neolithic, early Bronze Age. But the experts aren't 100% sure as to when the site went out of use, but it may have been reoccupied during the Iron Age. Well, the next thing I was hoping to show you was the Cuckoo Stone, but that's in a field where they're not allowing dogs either. Basically, looking down this path, I can just about see it right at the end. Apparently it's a Neolithic or Bronze Age standing stone, a sarsen stone that originally, say, would have been standing up. I think it was standing up as recently as 200 years ago. It's only a fragment of a tall megalith, probably broken up over time and used as local building materials. So just to show you exactly where we are. So that's the Durrington Walls over on my right. And then the Cuckoo Stone is in the field on my left. I think what I'm going to do is walk up this road and see if I can pick up a bridleway that's going to take us south. Surely they allow dogs on a bridleway. Okay, well, we've made our way up a road to the outskirts of Lark Hill, and looks like we can pick up this bridleway. It's pointing to the cursor, so hopefully we'll be able to see that at least. Oh dear. Just had a rather nasty fall, so I was coming down this bank to join up with this bridleway and well, slipped all the way down and going to be stiff tomorrow. So this little track that we're on now, which is sort of heading in a southeasterly direction, is dead straight, and it's actually the remains of a dismantled railway. Now, there was a railway called the Amesbury Military Camp Light Railway, also known as the Bulford Camp Railway. It was a branch line coming off the London and South Western Railway main line from Andover to Salisbury, and it came off at the Newton-Tony junction. And it opened in 1901 for military traffic from Amesbury to the main line, and it extended to Bulford in 1906, and then Lark Hill round about the time of the First World War. Indeed, it extended further west and south. But all the extensions closed in 1923, and all the stations on the line were removed in 1952. I think the whole track was actually gone by 1963. Well, just to show you where we've been, so this is the track that we've been coming down, and then this is just looking to the north. So Woodhenge was just on the other side of that ridge there, and then just as I slowly pan round, this is very much the outskirts of Amesbury on the right. Now this is as far south as I am going along that disused railway line. At this point I'm going to start heading westwards towards Stonehenge. You can probably hear a busy road in the background. That's the A303. And I just bumped into a lovely lady with a dog. I was asking her about dog access around here, because to be honest I wasn't expecting to see that sign back up at the Durrington Walls and also the Cuckoo Stone. And she told me apparently that they have a lot of trouble with sheep getting attacked by dogs, and so it's a complete no dog policy. I asked her, was it like that everywhere around here. I think we're going to be okay for the rest of the walk, but I may well keep Logan on a lead anyway, just to keep the folk happy. Most of the land around here is either English Heritage or National Trust. That's the sign I was looking for. Kings Barrow Ridge 1 mile, Stonehenge 3 miles. So I say we start heading westwards and past this little clump of trees on the left. Well, a little pit stop just to take in a view, and this is looking back towards the east where we've come from along a bridleway. Quite open and exposed up here. Now in front of me here are one of the old king barrows, and they show on an old map, and there are 5 or 6 barrows around here, and then just further to the south there are the new king barrows. I think there are 7 of those. They're early Bronze Age. Aha, our first sighting in the very far distance of the iconic Stonehenge. I don't know how close we're going to get up to it, but we'll see. Well, at this point, we now join the avenue. The good news, it looks as though dogs are allowed, providing they're kept on lead. And there's an information board in front of me. So what exactly is the avenue? Well, it was first recorded in 1740. It was built within the 3rd phase of the building of Stonehenge. More on the Stonehenge bit later on. So, I don't know, 2600 BC to 1700 BC. And it starts beside the River Avon in the south and consists of a pair of parallel banks about 34 metres apart with outer ditches. And it runs sort of north-northwest for half a mile, then swings around to the west and passes through where the Bronze Age barrows would later be built. It then takes a sharp turn to the southwest and runs onto the northwest entrance of Stonehenge, and I think it narrows to about 21 metres for the last 500 metres. As to what it was used for, well, possibly a processional path, but say the experts don't know. Well, before the next scene, I need to clarify the situation regarding walking with dogs within the Stonehenge landscape. There are some areas where dogs are not allowed and other areas where dogs have to be kept on leads. Well, looking at this aerial picture on screen, you can see where I followed a public bridleway. That's the purple route. I then went through a gate, which is marked on the screen with an orange arrow, onto the avenue and followed the green route. There was a sign on the gate indicating that dogs could have access on lead. But halfway along the avenue there was a fence and gate with a sign saying no dogs. So I retraced my steps and made my way to the east end of the cursus. I actually returned to Stonehenge the following day on my own to film this next scene. Well, I've made my way up the avenue and finally reached Stonehenge itself. And this is as near as I'm going to be able to get to the stones without paying an entrance fee. But as you can see, it's very popular with visitors. So as far as the history of Stonehenge is concerned, well, what exactly is it? I mean, there's an outer ring of vertical sarsen standing stones, each about 4 metres high and just over 2 metres wide, weighing about 25 tonnes, topped by sort of connecting horizontal lintel stones. And then inside is a ring of smaller blue stones, and then inside that there are some freestanding trilithons, I think they're called, basically 2 vertical sarsen stones with a lintel on top. And they're all sort of aligned towards, I think it's sunrise on the summer solstice and sunset on the winter solstice, not sure. And the stones are actually set within an outer earthworks. And archaeologists have found post holes that were here long before the stones were put up that might date it all back to, well, 8000 BC. So it's always been an important site. But as far as the present structure goes, the surrounding circular bank and ditch is one of the earliest bits, constructed about 3100 BC. And then timber posts were used between 2900 and 2600 BC. But in 2600 BC, stone started to be used. And basically it started off as a place associated with burials and evolved in several construction phases of a period of, well, 1,500 years. I say these days it's owned by the Crown and managed by English Heritage, and as I said before, the surrounding land is owned by the National Trust. Well, I've made my way to the cursus. Had a bit of a detour to get here, a few fields where you couldn't take dogs in. I'm right on the edge of the cursus, and I'm actually in some woods keeping out the wind. It's so open up here, and well, hopefully you can hear me above the audio. And this is the cursus, first recorded in the 18th century. It maybe dates as far back as 3500 BC, so you know, well over 500 years or so before the first phase of Stonehenge. And it's a pair of near parallel banks and outer ditches between 100 metres and 150 metres apart for a total of, well, 1.7 miles in sort of east-west direction. I think the word cursus derives from Latin course, because they originally thought it might have been for chariot racing, even though I think it was built something like 1,500 years before chariots were invented. Okay, so we're now on the last leg, continuing to head eastwards back towards Woodhenge. Well, we're nearly at the end of the walk now. I've just got to follow this track and say we'll get back to the car at Woodhenge. But not quite the end of the video. We've got one more destination. I'm going to pop in my car and drive to Durrington. And here we are, folks. Well, it's sort of got a connection with Stonehenge. It's called the Stonehenge Inn at Durrington. Now, on an 1887 map, it's called the Crossroads Brewery, but on a 1901 map, it's changed its name back to the Stonehenge Inn. And seeing as we're here, well, we ought to pop in purely for research purposes for the video. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We're in the beer garden of the Stonehenge Inn. We've had a super walk today. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Right, it's not pipers, I'm afraid. Birds. Oh yeah. And now for this. Oh yes, thumbs up from me.